And I'm so excited for the opportunity to be here with all of you today. So just as Tarihan said, hello, my name is Kayla, and I am a graduating chemistry student from California State University, Long Beach. And I am, again, just so grateful for the opportunity to be here and share a little bit about my journey and what's important to me. So my story actually begins about 7 years ago when I took my very first honors chemistry course in high school. And like every other 14-year-old who has the fortune of taking high school chemistry, I was lost, confused, and woefully frustrated. Now, to fully underscore this point for you, I thought I would share one of my absolute favorite Facebook posts that 14-year-old Kayla wrote 7 years ago, which states, "Dear Chemistry, I know our relationship can be far from desirable or ideal at times, but I need one teensy favor, just one, I swear. All I need is for you to make sense for about 24 hours, just 24 hours, then you can go back to being a bunch of rubbish for the rest of the year. Okay, Chemistry, I'm trusting you. Please don't let me down. Love, your possible friend and most likely long-term enemy, Kayla." I wrote this the night before my first chemistry final, and I'm still proud to report, even 7 years later, I received a 99% on that exam. So if you learn absolutely nothing from this talk, I hope you learn the power of submitting your request to Facebook when you're in need. Now, I wish I could tell you that after this success, chemistry and I entered into this long-term relationship of love and excitement and understanding. And I just knew that 7 years later, I would be sitting here before you, about to graduate with a BS in chemistry as the most outstanding graduate in my graduating class. But the truth is, I didn't. I still hated it, and I was eager for the day it would disappear from my life. But all of this began to change about 3 months later when I walked into the same chemistry course, and projected onto the screen were these two images of Dr. Marie Maynard Dawley. Dr. Dawley was the first African-American woman to receive her PhD in chemistry in 1947. And I remember staring at the screen completely in awe of this Black woman who not only survived high school chemistry, but went on to willingly obtain her PhD and create science that mattered. And as I'm sitting there staring, my chemistry teacher walks beside me, and very casually he says, "You know, that could be you one day." Fully entertained by the idea of myself transforming into the brilliant biochemist on the screen, I laughed and otherwise remained silent, not sharing in his confidence. However, Dr. Dawley's image remained imprinted in my memory. The idea that if she, a Black woman, could belong to STEM, there was just this crazy chance that I could as well, enthralled me. So when I applied for college 2 years later and I selected my intended major instead of political science or psychology like I thought I would do, I chose biochemistry. And it's when I came to CSU LB that I had my first introduction to peer education through supplemental instruction for my first semester general chemistry class. Supplemental instruction, or SI for short, is a form of peer education where a graduate student or an undergraduate student teaches a 1 unit, credit or no credit, university level course for a historically difficult class like chemistry. My SI leader was Marina, and let me tell you, Marina was fabulous. She was my living, breathing inspiration. She was just yet another woman of color who seemed to master this thing called chemistry that slipped my mind every single time. Now, the difference between Marina and Dr. Dawley was Marina was right in front of me. I was able to witness her excellence in the flesh and was on the receiving end of endless amount of support and love and encouragement. And so by the end of my first semester of college, I decided my new goal for college was by the time I graduated, I had to become Marina. And so as my first step to do this at the end of the semester, I also applied to be a general chemistry SI leader. And on November 20th of 2017, I eagerly told Marina I was hired on the spot. And this began my true journey as not just a student who benefited from peer education, but a peer educator. Over the last 3.5 years, I have been in peer education, very involved throughout my campus for 7 semesters. And throughout those semesters, I haven't just been an SI leader and an SI mentor, but I've also been a peer mentor for honor students and underrepresented STEM students, an academic support coach, and a tutor for chemistry. And even though I've had a lot of positions, I've worked with a lot of different programs, I still vividly remember my first day of SI. I woke up super early on that first Wednesday of classes, and I remember waking up early even though my class didn't start until 2 p.m. just so I could practice my PowerPoint like 17 times before I had to do the real thing. And although it was a great session and I had a ton of fun, what I remember most is at 3:15 p.m. when I walked out of that classroom for the first time and I dialed my mom's phone number with tears in my eyes in true Kayla fashion and said, "I found what I want to do forever." In that first semester, really that first day, I found my passion, which is encouraging, supporting, and uplifting students, particularly underrepresented students in STEM. And for the last 3.5 years, semester after semester, I have walked into classrooms, both physical and virtual, over and over and over because of my love for making students feel seen, heard, supported, and valued. On the first day of working with any group of students that I have for that semester, I share with them I have one priority for them, and that is for them to exit my classroom as a different version than they entered as. Now, this priority really can be broken down into 4 distinct goals, with the first one being I want every student that I work with, by the time that they're done with me, to be clear and confident in their potential, not just in science, but outside of it as well. The second is that they would have the ability to isolate their identity from their academic performance. The third is that they would value their mental, physical, and emotional health more than any class, exam, or circumstance. And the last one is hopefully by the time they're done with me, they know just a little bit of chemistry by week 16. But if I were to accomplish goals 1 through 3, and at the end of the semester, when I asked my students to differentiate between an acid and a base, and they're still not quite sure, while I would be slightly concerned for their overall exam scores, I would still consider my job to be wildly successful. Because after all, it's absolutely useless for my students to understand how atoms and molecules react to power this thing called life if they don't recognize the life within them is valuable. There is no point in my students understanding that the potential energy increases as an atom bond is stretched if they don't realize the potential within them if they would just stretch themselves a little bit farther. So it is important to me that students understand not just the chemistry, but the person who is going to be conducting that chemistry in the future. And I believe that this is at the crux of peer education. It's this shared understanding that the individual student matters, not as a student first, but as a human being. Because our students walk into laboratories and classrooms and lecture halls every day where they're just another number. They're just another screen name on Zoom. They are just another body taking up space in a room. And how can we expect our students to be successful in a system that does not acknowledge the unique difference they bring to us? How can we expect them to have the courage to invest into themselves and their educations if we aren't willing to make that investment with them? It is so important that we learn to value our students. And over the last 3.5 years, I have had the absolute honor and pleasure to work with over 500 students in my capacity as a peer educator. And I've been able to listen to their dreams and goals and passions and visions. I have seen them fail repeatedly, yet continue to return to my classroom to try again. I have been inspired by their stories, moved by their perseverance, encouraged by their optimism. And I've also sat with them in the pit of their fears and their anxieties. And I haven't just sat there, I've also experienced it myself. I've shared in those feelings of imposter syndrome, shared in their low self-esteem, shared in their unbelief that they can become whatever it is they're dreaming of. Because despite doing well in my classes, despite my success as a peer instructor, despite the awards and accolades and acceptances and scholarships, I too have struggled to see myself objectively, to believe in my own potential despite years of standing in front of my students and preaching to them that they are more than their exam scores, they are more than this course. I still have managed to measure my own self-worth by the number of A's I can pack into a transcript. I have shared in the struggle between the dissonance of desiring to be the change I want in my field, but not seeing myself reflected. And if I'm honest, there have been days and weeks and months and semesters where I've wanted to give up, where I've considered changing my major to something outside of STEM, that I've sat down with my bosses and said, I just don't think graduate school is for me anymore. But what's amazing is with all of that, I am still here. Sitting before you today in this virtual space, I am still here. And to me, this gets to the very heart of why peer education is not just valuable to the students we serve, but to the peer educators themselves. Because despite battling with these insecurities, I have remained tethered to my goals, tethered to my dreams, tethered to my passions, because every time I stand in front of a group of my students, I am reminded of why I started. I am reminded of my why. It is them. For the rest of my career, I desire to stand in front of classrooms and laboratories, teaching and educating the future sciences of tomorrow. I want them to see themselves in this field. I want to help them imagine themselves being the future educators and professionals and scientists and academics that we do not yet see reflected. And what's amazing is since November 20th of 2017, when I was 17 and then 18 and 19 and 20 and 21, I have had the opportunity to live out my wildest dreams by pouring into and investing into students who just need someone to believe in them first. It's amazing because I am being what Dr. Dawley's photograph was to me at 14 and what Marina was to me at 17. I just needed someone to believe in me, and then I could see them do it first. And as I work to inspire my students, in a way, I am inspiring myself, because every step of the way, I'm slowly morphing into this image of excellence I desire to become. And so for my peer instructors listening right now, whether you are a tutor or an SI leader or anywhere in between that, I want to both thank you and commend you. I commend you for the work you are doing for your students, for your passion and your drive, for your tenacity and your commitment to excellence. I want you to know that even if your goal isn't education or to enter academia, the way you show up for yourselves is the way you're showing up for your students and the way you are showing up for your future. For the faculty and staff that support us, we are so thankful for you. Thankful for the way that you pour into us so we can then pour out to our students. You are truly responsible for putting us on a platform and in a position that allows us to become the version of ourselves that our futures need. It is no exaggeration for me to say that my time as a peer instructor has completely transformed my life. In fact, I can exactly pinpoint that moment for you, the moment when my passions and dreams became clear, when the trajectory of my college career transformed. And it was that moment when I walked out of my first essay session and I called my mom with those tears in my eyes and I said, I found what I want to do forever. And so now, 3.5 years later, I am so excited to announce I'm only 3 weeks away from graduating with my BS in chemistry. And for a second, I just want to remind us again of where I started. As a 14-year-old who was scared and nervous and hated chemistry, never believing that she would belong to STEM or even desire to belong to STEM. And now not only am I 3 weeks away for finishing my undergrad career, I am also just 4.5 weeks away from boarding a one-way ticket to California, to Illinois, to begin PhD studies at a top 10 research institution. And I want to draw particular attention between the two dates in these photographs, December 17th of 2014 and December 11th of 2020, almost exactly 6 years apart. Exactly 6 years apart. And that is the power of peer education. It can take students from the then to the now, from the there and the then to the future. And it is absolutely incredible. Again, I will forever be grateful for my opportunity to be a peer educator on my campus in all capacities, not just in SI. And I plan to stay connected to my undergrad institution as much as I can. And one of the ways I'll do this is this summer, I'm beginning a scholarship fund for underrepresented students in STEM, where I'll select 2 students who maybe are starting a little like me, scared, desperate, needing some support and some encouragement. And I will provide them both with a $1,000 scholarship and, more importantly, mentorship from me over the next year of their undergrad career, and hopefully until they get to that finish line as well. And the reason why I share all of these details with you is because I believe this is a direct product of peer education. This is what happens when you give students the opportunity to make a change on their campus. When you take a chance on a 17-year-old kid and you give her some expo markers in her own classroom and her students, you tell her you believe in her potential, you are allowing miracles to happen. I believe that my then versus now, where I started in 2014 and where I ended in this moment, is nothing short of my own personal miracle. And so again, I want to thank all of the peer educators and those that support them that are here. The work that you are doing is tremendous, and I was a direct beneficiary of that. So I encourage you to continue working, to take everything you've learned in the last 3 days and bring it to your students, bring that passion and that love, because you are part of someone else's success story. I want to take a moment to thank ACTLA for the opportunity to speak with you all today and share a little bit about my passions, as well as the CSU SI program, for all of the love and support. You guys have been the reason I've been able to have the transformation I've had over the last 4 years from the moment I started at CSU. And lastly, but not least, I want to thank all of you listening. Thank you for allowing me to share this space with you and share my heart with you. And I'm so excited to not only see where I will go, but where peer education will go in the years to come, and how conversations that we are having now are going to impact our students' futures. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I am tremendously grateful. Thank you.